I'm Billy Mitchell, Editor-in-Chief of FedScoop, and we're on the sidelines of IT Mod Talks. I'm here with Brian Mikkelsen, VP and GM of U.S. Public Sector for Datadog. Brian, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Brian, where have you seen agencies make the most notable progress in modernizing their IT systems over the past year?
Yeah, great question, and there's a lot to be said there. I think what's most important for a company like Datadog, given that we're a SaaS-only delivery model, are the advancements that are happening in FedRAMP. And I think the benefit of that is at the FedRAMP level, that is federally wide, so it gives us the most ability to remove the friction around adoption of innovative solutions. So what we saw in early part of FY23, tied to the National Defense Authorization Act, is the FedRAMP Authorization Act, which codifies FedRAMP as the law of the land for security analysis and standardization of what cloud-based technologies can be used by the federal government. But even more importantly, one of the things that we as a vendor end up going through on a very regular basis is going through the exact same processes. Here we talk about the authority to operate, or the ATO process. We find ourselves going through the exact same processes with agency after agency. One of the big, I think, issues that gets addressed in the FedRAMP Authorization Act is this presumption of adequacy. So once a sponsoring vendor, for Datadog, our sponsor is the Veterans Affairs Administration. Once they authorize us and give us our ATO, the presumption of adequacy would, now codified in the law, allow for other federal agencies, CISOs, or whoever is the responsible party, to use that technology without having to once again go through the process of the ATO.
And Brian, what's an example of how IT modernization has made a material difference in helping an agency or someone that Datadog works with their employees work more productively over the past year?
Yeah, and again, I think a little bit of a broad-based answer, and I'm going to tie it right back to that FedRAMP discussion we were just having. So if you look at FedRAMP, if you look at FedRAMP.gov, and you go to the marketplace, what you can really see is all of the various vendors and the various levels of certification that they've achieved. So what you see when you go to Datadog's marketplace is you'll see 65 plus that have been certified with an ATO against LI-SAS, and another 6 that have been ATO'd for FedRAMP moderate certification. And kind of tying these two questions together between the FedRAMP Authorization Act and tying together how that's helping the government, what we're seeing is really the acceleration of the adoption of innovation through the standardization of the practices for being able to use those technologies. To give some statistics directly from the FedRAMP pages, I think there was 4,500 areas of reuse for FedRAMP certified technologies in 2022. If you look at that as a function, that's 60% up over 21, 130+% over 2020. So kind of combining the questions, what we're seeing on the Datadog side is federal agencies more easily to access and use our SaaS-only technology. And then what it really gets down to is the problems they're solving. So how are they actually modernizing? Why are they modernizing? When you look at what drives customers towards Datadog, it's the fact that what we see in the industry is the IT systems that we build and manage becoming more complex at an accelerating rate. And what the leaders and what the users of those systems need to figure out is, how do I go about simplification of that? And this is really where Datadog comes in. We talk a lot about simple, not simplistic. What we allow our customers to do, in this case our federal customers, regardless of whether we're talking about network, infrastructure, applications, whether we're talking about containers, microservices, or serverless functions, and regardless of whether that is legacy on-prem systems or whether that is new, more modern in the cloud, any app, anywhere, we allow them to have observability for those systems. So when we talk about those FedRAMP certifications, there's over 71 ATOs for Datadog working within the federal government today. And each one of those customers, from a modernization standpoint, what they're doing is they're reducing their tools, they're reducing their costs, they're simplifying the way by which they bring their teams together. So whether we're talking about developers, security, operations, whether we're talking about the business leaders or the business analysts, we're bringing everybody into this single resource or a single source of truth so that when systems do go down, and that's the reality, right? All software is flawed, systems go down. What Datadog is allowing these 60 plus federal entities to do is greatly reduce their time to detection so they know when they have an issue, and then knowing what to do when they have that issue.
Brian, pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for taking the time to stop by.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.